have a wonderful speaker on board today. Uh, the buzzword which we've been hearing across multiple sessions is sustainability. Young developers are mindful of the impact that our construction activities have on the environment. That being said, they are not very clear as to how to implement sustainable solutions, how to integrate them into our projects. What is the impact that these what is the environmental impact our projects have, and what is the cost benefit analysis of integrating such sustainable solutions into the program. So we have with us today Sriram Kuchimanchi, founder of Smarter Dharma. Notable to learn that Sriram has been awarded in the presence of the Honorable President for his approach to work on climate change. He has been associated with state governments of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, to work on the sustainability front. I'd like to welcome Sriram today, our last and wonderful speaker, to talk about a simple approach to realize business value from sustainability.
Thanks, Kapil. Thanks, Abhishek, and thanks, CREDAI, for inviting me. I don't know if this was very planned to have me as the last speaker, or it just so happened, because I think it fits quite well. I think it's important to see how you connect the dots, and that's what sustainability brings. And I'm really looking forward to sharing some of my thoughts, and also see how can we demystify sustainability. See, ultimately, it's a buzzword. This 2022's most used word, I'm sure, will be climate change and sustainability and net zero. On a lighter note, I have spoken in 4 conferences last year about advancing net zero buildings. And I'm sure all of you heard it. IGBC was the last I spoke last year. By 2030, the joke in this space is sustainability will be the most used word and the least understood word. My aim is to see if we can demystify it. So I am really the block between warm bed and you guys. So I'll try to do it as quickly as I can. Let me share my screen. So everybody can see my screen?
Yes, Sriram.
Super. Thank you. Yeah, so I was thinking what will be the topic, right? To simplify it, I figured it makes sense to talk about net zero buildings, because not just I'm sure you saw the news a few days ago. Government has now announced that we will do carbon credits in India, but we are not going to sell our carbon credits outside the country till 2030, when Indian government has a mandate to mitigate 1 billion tons of carbon. That's a huge number. It's a huge number, and that's something where actually I believe all of us can play a role, and it can actually add a lot of value, not just for India, but our business bottom line, and helping us secure a better future. I think there's a confluence of all these ideas here possible. And so net zero buildings seemed logical to be a core focus. But how do you simplify it, right? Numbers plays a key role, and like pretty much Abhishek spoke, and Shashi spoke, and Saraf spoke. Data, technology, customer delight, these are all key parts here. So let's see how that works. You've spoken about my background, so I'll skip this. But this being the last talk, it's also a good idea to sit back and take a breather and really imagine what is the future we are all aspiring to build. Why in this for this audience this is critical to understand is, I'm sure you all know this data, right? By 2030, the expected infrastructure in the country, as of 2019, 71% of it, not a brick was laid, and you are all laying those bricks. CREDAI is leading India in its infrastructure development, and we are the 3rd largest cement consumer in the world. We are the 3rd largest carbon footprint generator in the world. By 2030, we are expected to become number 1. We're going to beat China and the United States, right? So if that is the growth we are having, with the 100 smart cities, with the 20 million new houses to be built this decade, I think it's critical that we understand what is the future we are thinking. Now, this would be really ideal, right? This is how we would want to see a future. Obviously, this is This is great visual effects created. Similarly, this is also visual effects created, but this is more reality. This was created for London, the city of London, and both were, showing that. But we are seeing this kind of reality. It's ironic that I'm showing the screen right now. I'm sitting in Los Angeles, where I'm sure you all saw the news over the last 1 week. California is having atmospheric rivers, they say. We've seen flooding in San Francisco, flooding in Los Angeles, which till a week before, California was having its 1100-year-old drought. Rivers, lakes are drying up so much so that Southern California, we are also talking about controlling water availability, much like the way we do in India, right? And so the political other sides aside, that's the challenge we're talking about. India is having already these kind of things too. So a key part in this is infrastructure industry. Infrastructure industry is not only in the top 4, it's actually number 2 with respect to greenhouse gas emitted. But it has the highest potential for mitigation, because for the least capital, you can have a high greenhouse gas mitigation impact. That ends the Gyan session. I don't want to do too much Gyan today, but I want to see what can we do, right? Now, is it an opportunity? I actually totally believe that taking sustainability and figuring out a business value out of it is a huge opportunity. And in the process, we are also going to do good for the world. Hey, why not? So, this is to tell you about the cost benefit analysis, right? Compared to energy, agriculture, transportation, all these other sectors, buildings stand out where for the least capital, you can have the highest decarbonization potential, which is why we all can contribute to Indian government's roadmap of 1 billion ton decarbonization for the least capital. No other industry can have the impact we can do. So how? So let's look at net zero, right? Net zero is a definition. This is the modern definition used. This is what people want to say. Does that make sense? This kind of works for the United States because energy is a focus here. But for us, India, I really feel anybody should look at is this. We should really say it is a net zero energy, net zero water. What does net zero water mean? You're not depending on any external sources. Can a site take care of its own water requirements? Net zero carbon. We are saying net zero carbon, but in reality, there is embodied and operational. We'll talk a little about it. And net zero waste. During construction, one of the panelists here, we work with them where we've created a model where mostly no waste is going to landfill and everything is handled. There's a structured approach to that. Similarly, net zero energy, where can you depend completely on renewable sources? But these things cannot come out of thin air, nor, to be very honest, brutally honest, having a net zero carbon building is even possible. But our approach and what we've seen success over the work, over 11 million square feet of working, over 45,000 tons of carbon mitigation, which Sriram has done, we have noticed that there is a realistic approach possible, realistic goals possible, but for that we need to set goals. Now, let's quickly understand what I mean by when we say net zero carbon here, right? What is embodied in operation? A minute of understanding that. Embodied carbon is a one-time thing, right? It's like all the material which goes into it, the energy involved in manufacturing your material, the energy involved in constructing of the building. That's the embodied carbon, which is really directly in the builder's hand. This is what you can control. A quick understanding is granite has a high carbon footprint. Bamboo has a very low carbon footprint. So if we are able to move some of our flooring from granite base to bamboo, we are reducing embodied carbon. If we reduce cement by even 3% in our construction, we are having a significant reduction in embodied carbon. Operational carbon, on the other hand, is still in the hands of the builder, but it is how well you're managing the building, right? And that goes into the hands of the residents, tenants, leasers, leasees. It's how well you maintain your HVAC. It's how much water are you using daily, because it's the operation. To simplify this one, it is buying the car is embodied impact. One time you're putting 15 lakh rupees, so much energy, etc. goes into it. Operational impact is every week you're putting petrol into the car to run it, right? And that's going on forever. Now, the interesting thing is, as of today, we're already migrating toward embodied and operational becoming almost equal. Initially, operational was a big footprint, embodied is a smaller footprint. Now, this is changing, and the prediction is like this. Why? Because if you think about it, globally, this is not just India, globally, grid is anyway becoming more renewable. Governments are all moving towards solar, wind, offshore wind, hydro, even nuclear, right? All these are going to come in. What's in our hand is the material. Do we have science? There is some technology there. I'm sure you all read about in CREDAI events. We've had folks coming in showcasing bricks made from agri waste, bricks made from hemp, alternate for cement. We have built a house from mud and cob. All these are there. How do you mainstream it? And that's a challenge. I'm not saying the solutions are already there, but there are small things which we can start with. What I want to do today is talk about operational, embodied, and see success stories of how do we simplify and see an easy way. The most important thing is goal setting. Now, this is an approach I recommend we should all use. Like how others we're talking about what's successfully worked. Goal setting. Now, think of each of you, right? For a new project, you would set a goal saying, I should make 30% profit margin on this project, for 50% profit margin on this project. So your financial goals, you would say that if this is a 10-acre land, I should probably perhaps at least build 2 million square feet, right? You have square footage goals. But when it comes to sustainability, we are stymied. We don't have goal setting. The closest we have got today is actually with respect to IGBC or Griha or building certification related goals. And that's okay. I'm not against the idea of going by setting goals with certification, but it is still only, it's driven towards that goal per se, not as much as towards making the building more sustainable. But I think if we do this well, if we are able to set tangible, realistic sustainability goals, because net zero carbon is not even going to happen, because embodied carbon you cannot do. Without naming names, this is what I'll tell you. Some of the biggest builders in the country today have goals that by 2030 they should be operationally carbon neutral. But when you talk about embodied carbon, they are still not sure, because it's not possible. So when we say net zero goals, let's be realistic and let's look at how can we set that. If we set those goals well and design our solutions based on that, constantly seeing tangible value, you can then talk to your customers. Remember, customer delight, communication with the customer, data, the terms others spoke earlier. We could do that. For example, again, some of the panelists here have used our services in doing this is, if we set a proper sustainability goal, we work with somebody where we set 78% self-sufficiency on water. And if that goal is set and you drive your design solutions based on that, the customer communication could reach to a point where you can say, because of living in this community, your community is buying 12 tankers per day lesser. And because of that, your maintenance cost comes down by 32%. So your end of the year, you're pocketing 15,000 rupees more than what you would have pocketed if you're buying the same apartment with another average Joe builder. So can you communicate that? And for all this to happen, numbers is critical. Can you really work in a tangible way to adopt sustainability? Now imagine platform which is giving you a goal set like this, saying for energy, if I'm going to be 90% self-sufficient on the building, what have I achieved? Can you track this data? If you start tracking this, you exactly know what's your sustainability journey, and you can see the impact you're having. Most importantly, imagine if you are empowered saying what is the cost of sustainability, because many times there's a misunderstanding that sustainability is very expensive. Now imagine for a building, if I'm able to show you, this is one of our clients' data, right? 37 rupees per square feet is your cost for sustainability, which pays back in 2.6 years, which is going to help you achieve 90% self-sufficient in your common area of energy. If I'm able to show you this, and some for water, some for waste, 37 rupees per square feet is not a big deal at all. Who on this would say, I won't do it? So imagine tangibilizing like this. This is possible if you are able to set your goals. So the approach, that's why this becomes critical, which is set your goals, have your design driven by that. You will automatically have good data to customer communication. And of course, our platform today can also give you information of what's your competition doing, what is any building which is IGBC certified able to sell, so that you know what to sell at. So an example, right? I was telling you somebody we worked with where we set a goal. We set a goal that 78% self-sufficiency on water. Actually, we set a goal that 83% is possible in this project. But the architect and the builder decided to drop one of the solution. So 79% was done. So, you see, we created customer communication where we created the idea of carbon healing home. We created the idea of sponge effect. We're saying that if you're saving every drop, up to 80% of your water is now saved and you are self-sufficient with respect to water. These are the numbers we could create, right? We set a capex increase based on their adoption of sustainability. 60 rupees, again, like I said, I'm sure pretty much any of you would be fine with it. But look at the return on capital deployed. Right? Look at the content we can create. We can say per household how much per square feet you can save, and you can directly see the benefit for the customer, which is directly your good for your marketing. In fact, many of the builders we work with put sustainability under their marketing budget these days, which I think is excellent, because we are in a day and age where customer is not unintelligent. Especially Indian customers are very smart. India is a kitna deti hai country. If you're talking about numbers, then Indians, will really understand. They're smart. And at the same time, imagine being able to showcase them that you are able to save so many trees, or you're actually planting so many trees. So that combination of data is possible. I'll quickly put embodied carbon. Now, this is again for another project. I'm sure any of your projects will similarly fall into this kind of numbers, right? So cement is a big deal, concrete, steel, and you would say, can we build without it? Not yet. We can do some stuff. We can see a nominal drop in cement, nominal drop in concrete, a non-trivial drop in steel, but then tiles and window frames, all these you can actually have a significant drop. Imagine you have this kind of data, and now suddenly it is not too difficult to work with. Sriram was talking about customer delight. Imagine you now bring in your customer to say, look, I have worked on reducing 7% of the embodied carbon, and for the rest of it, tree planting as part of your landscaping, we've planted X number of trees, which is going to help reduce your carbon footprint by so much, and working with you, we'll plant some more. We can then chart out a path towards net zero. And now it's numbered. You can actually predict and do, which most of us don't do still. I can give you umpteen examples. We work with another builder who had a facade of a green wall, right? It's a 40, no, it's not, it's a 42-meter building actually. And they had a green facade. And they went ahead next day, tweeted saying, here's us becoming green. Instantly, lots of people tweeted back saying, look at the concrete behind the building and you're just making a green facade with creeper on the front wall and you're talking sustainable. Do you have any idea how much you have done? You're actually causing more harm by building. People are instantly coming back to you because people are not unintelligent. But imagine if the same tweet was actually saying, look, this was the carbon footprint of this building. Now, with this green facade, we have reduced by 2%. Okay, fine, 2%. But with our residents and tenants, it was a multi-purpose building. It had residential and commercial. We're going to do over the next 10 years this much, where we will mitigate this much carbon. If you talk those numbers, which customer wouldn't want to be part of it? And you would have more profitable, more positive feedback from the customer. And towards that's kind of marketing content we've been working with and creating. Some big names, Brigade, for example, I'm just throwing in one names to tell you that you can look up on their Facebook, you can look up on their Instagram, some of the content which we created, which turned out to create sustainability content, and then they could sell well. I'll give you an example of the power of getting that data, right? And you would say, we don't have access to this data. Now imagine you have a platform which is able to list out all the material and actually help you select every brick possible. One of the panelists here uses these hollow bricks. They have seen the value of it. We have worked with them and shown that the hollow brick is helping them actually save carbon footprint, and you are able to instantly
Sriram,
compare like this.
can we wrap this up in 2 to 3 minutes, please?
Yeah. We're towards the end, man. So and so if you're able to compare like this and see simply this, we have seen builders, and again Suhail is on this group, I'm sure you have actually seen this value. We have data to prove that this kind of value is possible and kind of carbon impact, and he sold really well. He's won an award for leadership in sustainable design and performance, and this is very realistic, and he's able to show incredible sales because of that. Right time, Kapil, you told me. I want to actually conclude saying, look, the critical thing on the approach is to be able to set goals. Critical approach required is go by numbers, measure, mitigate, manage. I think that's a very critical approach to doing this. Focus on embodied carbon, not just operational. Operation will happen. I think you have to focus on embodied carbon. And finally, and most importantly, most of you on your website, in your CSR, you'll talk about working with a school, planting some trees. I actually urge you to tell you that sustainability is not a CSR element. In fact, Indian government has passed the law last year, right? Top 1,000 publicly traded companies have to have an ESG roadmap, ESG report to be published. 23 of them are builders. Many of you are aspiring to become that, right? And in a few years, ESG report will become mandate, which means a move of sustainability from CSR to ESG means you are moving sustainability from a fringe weekend hobby to becoming core to your business. And I urge you to do it faster, and that's the best way for you to realize value of adopting sustainability. Thank you. I'm open to questions also, and couple.
Fantastic session, Sriram. You are a real life Avenger who's battling for the good of the planet. We need to move from intention to action. We need to move from certification to purpose. We need to have measurable, tangible parameters to decrease the negative impact that our construction activities have on the planet. So I hope we interact with you on an individual basis when we plan our projects in the future. Thank you so much, Sriram, for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. You have a great day. Actually, your day just started there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.